Well, no music, no PowerPoints even, and I hope no dancing. I'll briefly summarize global progress, but you all have in your packs detailed tables of law reform, both global and for the US, and also there will be available copies of our global report and other things. I want to use some of the time to cover what I see as the challenges and ways forward. And you can relax because my detailed paper will be made available by George on the website. For me, progress is measured by law reform, and it is children's right. Children have a right to equal protection under the law of their human dignity and their physical integrity. Children are the last people waiting for this fundamental protection which we as adults take for granted. The difficulty of achieving a clear ban, and particularly achieving it in the family home, reflects what a direct and highly symbolic challenge this is to children's traditional status as possessions, not people. Achieving it marks a dramatic breakthrough in how a society regards its children. You can't pretend to respect someone while you defend a right to hit and deliberately hurt them. And as Marley reminded us last night, governments can't pretend that they have effective child protection systems while their laws authorize deliberate disciplinary violence against children. Of course, banning corporal punishment on its own will not stop people, particularly parents, from hitting children. Sweden and maybe Costa Rica are, I believe, really the only countries which have as yet systematically linked a ban on all corporal punishment to comprehensive public and parent education. Education which ensures that everyone knows about the law, knows about children's right to equal protection, awareness raising of the obvious dangers of corporal punishment, and promotion of non-violent relationships with children. So, as you heard last night, 29 states have achieved equal legal protection for children. At least another 23 states have publicly committed themselves to this, or have legislation that could achieve it going through their parliaments. But of course these commitments change with changes of government and parliaments, and I have to say that our progress table is quite deliberately optimistic. But even if many, and not all, of these situations lead to full abolition, more than a quarter of the world's states will have achieved this iconic reform for children. A lot of these pioneering states are quite small, so the 29 only include something like 5% of the world's child population. Brazil, which is now on the verge of achieving a complete ban, with its 69 million children, will almost double the numbers with equal protection. President Lula introduced the abolition bill just before he left office last year. And he has a personal story that explains his commitment, as is so often the case. His father had systematically beaten his older siblings. And when he started to beat Lula, the youngest, his mother took the children and left home for good. Brazil has also had the advantage of the passionate support of an extremely popular TV megastar in Brazil, Xuxa, and her foundation has largely supported the civil society campaign there. But I think we can hope for good news from Brazil quite soon. When people tell me in all regions that corporal punishment is part of their culture, I have to remind them always that it is absolutely part of my country's, England's, culture, and also that my country, in its colonial past, in the context of slavery and military occupation, in the development of school systems and penal systems for young people, and also in much missionary teaching, promoted and institutionalized corporal punishment in many countries. We weren't alone. The other colonizers did very similar things. But we do have to recognize now that corporal punishment is part of the culture of every society until it has been prohibited and systematically eliminated through linked public education over a long period. When people tell me that the language of rights, and particularly the language of children's rights, is unpopular and unconvincing, or that the rule of law is weak and prohibition won't really mean anything, I have to ask them what hope there is for human societies where basic rights and the rule of law are not respected. How can we pretend to be contributing to progress if we drop that language? If children don't experience adults who take their human rights seriously, including the basic right to respect for your physical integrity and dignity, how can we expect them to build rights-based societies for the future? Perhaps foolishly, I do feel confident now that the progress, and I mean the progress towards achieving universally equal legal protection for children, is unstoppable and irreversible. But the accelerating pace depends on the strength and the cunning of the advocacy pursuing law reform, and pursuing law reform explicitly and without compromise as a fundamental human right. We have to generate and maintain a sense of real urgency and impatience. Impatience particularly with adults' outrageous excuses for their violence. As Paulo Pinheiro, who led the UN study on violence against children, said when he reported to the General Assembly in 2007, children are sick of being called the future. They want to enjoy their childhoods free of violence now. So what are the elements of progress that support my optimism? First, the ever stronger human rights consensus. The monitoring body for the most ratified of all human rights instruments, the Convention on the Rights of the Child, consistently asserts, and has done since 1993, states obligations, legal obligations, to prohibit and eliminate all corporal punishment and other cruel or degrading punishment of children. The Committee on the Rights of the Child highlights that it is talking about all corporal punishment, however light, so-called loving slaps and all. Its landmark General Comment number 8 on the right of the child to protection, a key document which I hope will be on the website, George, if it isn't already. It consolidates their interpretation and provides detailed guidance to states. The committee consistently recommends prohibition as it examines states' successive reports under the Convention. 5 other UN human rights treaty bodies frequently echo the CRC committee recommendations, including significantly now the Committee Against Torture. In the new Universal Periodic Review process in the Human Rights Council in Geneva, in which states examine other states' overall human rights record, the legality of corporal punishment of children is more often than not raised and pursued now. During the first 9 UPR sessions since 2008, the obligation to prohibit corporal punishment was raised During the review of over 80 states, at least 35 accepted recommendations to prohibit. Of course, that doesn't mean they've yet done so, but only 12 states actively defended corporal punishment. This is all the result of systematic and targeted briefing of all these bodies and lobbying of their members. Then the regional human rights systems. The Council of Europe, with 47 member states, almost a quarter of the world's states, has made most progress, I believe, because it has the strongest human rights mechanism.